Hey guys, it's Alyssa. I am here with another one of these weekly-ish updates. I know it's been I think 2 weeks since I made a video, so figured I would just check in and let you know that I am still alive. Yeah, I don't know what I've been busy with, a lot of different things. I have been working on not so much writing, but revising. I think the last time I talked to you, I told you I'd finished a first draft of something I was working on. So now I'm doing the first round of revisions, I guess you could say. What I'm really doing is just trying to make sense of the mess that I have. And, you know, I, everybody writes differently, but when I write, I do some outlining and I really just try to get through it. And so some chapters that I have aren't really chapters. They're this is the chapter where such and such happens. And then there's nothing there because it's I don't, it's not something that I was ready to write at that time. So I just move past it and jump ahead. And the story does jump around a lot in some sense. So there's that going on too. And then the other problem is that how can I put it? I have an idea of what I want. I have a bit of a plot, an outline made for myself. But there are things that happen down the road, and then you get to a point where you're oh, you have this sudden realization this thing needs to happen before. So I don't necessarily at that point go back and write that. So I have little notes. This isn't one of them, but I have little pieces of paper with all these things jotted down as I'm going through it. And it's okay, I got to put this has to happen, before this event so that, everything makes sense. It all fits together. So I have a lot of that going on. So I'm trying to make sense of it. One of the things I need to do is create a timeline because it does jump around a lot. And also at the same time, the main course of the story takes place over, well, I'll say maybe 6 months, not quite 6 months. So I need that all outlined and then the flashback type chapters and stuff too. So that's what I'm working on. It's not really revising, editing. It's not really, getting into the story, the text, more big picture stuff I'm working on. I think in my last video, I said that I was going to have a new email, newsletter, whatever you want to call it, coming out, and I will at some point, but I didn't get the one out that I thought I was going to get out just because, life happens and sometimes you don't get done everything you want to get done, which is really the biggest challenge in my life, is finding time for all the things that I do and trying to get it all done and fit it all in. So that's really what's been going on in the middle of the last video I made and this video. My parents did come to visit. They were here a couple days. That always is a big thing, it throws the whole schedule out of whack. So it's, preparing for that, the time that they're here and then recovering from that. My parents like to go out to eat a lot. And it's I'm not used to that. And so that messes up my whole system. It's I'm finally back to eating normal meals again, which is nice. But yeah, I don't know how they do it. I really don't. I've read some books. I read this book. It's Death in a Prairie House. It's about Frank Lloyd Wright and something called the Taliesin murders. I didn't know anything about this. I had actually, my other life, I sell things on the internet, and this was a book I bought to sell, and I featured it in a haul video, and someone was you should read it. And I was well, very curious, because I don't really know anything about Frank Lloyd Wright other than, he designed some cool-looking houses, which I guess is what most of us know about him. So I was curious, and I didn't know that there was this, multiple murder that was associated with him. Basically, his I don't even know if you want to call her mistress, but he was still married to another woman when he was living with this other woman, and her children and a bunch of workers were all murdered at a house that he had built. So it's pretty shocking for the time, and even for now it would be pretty shocking. And so I was that sounds like something that would be interesting. And it was, and I definitely learned stuff about Frank Lloyd Wright. Like I said, I didn't know anything about him beforehand, and I feel I know him a little better, and, he was a brilliant architect, but he was also kind of a dick in his personal life anyway, so it was kind of interesting because, you get to see, the story behind someone you hear so much about, and he was kind of I don't know, kind of a self-centered, arrogant kind of jerk, kind of personality-wise, so that was interesting. But I don't know. The book was good and interesting, but at the same time, do you ever read an article like a, you know, like a magazine article or something, and you're like, wow, this is like fascinating, like this could be a whole book. And then sometimes you read a book and you're like, wow, this could have probably been a magazine article. That's kind of how I felt about this book. Like there was a lot of, to me, what was like filler in there, background stuff that was, you know, interesting, but maybe not necessarily necessary for this particular story. And I don't know. I mean, I find architecture nice to look at and stuff, but there was a lot of stuff about architecture in this book, like reading about architecture, which is really, really boring. It's like, I don't know, it's like reading about art. Like, you know, I mean, you can look at a painting and it's beautiful, and no amount of text can capture that beauty because it's a visual thing. And so architecture is kind of the same way. It's a visual thing. It's you have to be there and see it and experience it. And so when you try to like capture it in text, it doesn't capture it, and it ends up being kind of not that interesting and just kind of dull and boring. And so there was a lot of stuff about architecture which was just like boring to read. So there's some stuff that got skipped over as I was reading. But anyway, it's an interesting story and definitely worth checking out. And then the other thing I've been reading, only really just started, was a book that my father got for me called How to Write Like Tolstoy. It's by Richard Cohen. It's not really a how to write book, which is good because sometimes those can be a little annoying to read and you can't really teach writing. So it's more like the stories behind different books and authors, and a lot of classics as well as some modern writers. So lots of interesting stuff. I learned that Sherlock Holmes originally had a different name. I forget what it was. It was like Sheriford Hope or something like that, which was like a really and Dr. Watson had some other name too. I don't remember what it was, but Mrs. Conan Doyle did not like those names, and so thankfully they did get changed, which was good. But yeah, lots of interesting stuff like that, stories. There's something here that I read this morning. It's funny because this is probably the chapter on plagiarism, and I'm gonna be plagiarizing because I'm gonna like read from this. But let's see. This was okay. This is all about plagiarism. And it's about like schools that colleges now put out these like pamphlets on plagiarism so that students know what they can and cannot, you know, do as far as plagiarizing and stuff like that. I mean, you can't plagiarize, but anyway, what it is. And this was interesting. So it's applicants to a, let's see, in a survey of 50,000 applications in 2007, many for medical science courses, and for Oxford and Cambridge, it was found that 234 applicants for medicine began their personal statements with an identical anecdote about setting fire to their pajamas at the age of 8. And one wonders where the original story came from and why so many applicants thought it would benefit their case. That's just kind of funny. Like, you know, people use their essay and stole someone's essay. I don't know where they got it from, but that was interesting. And then, this is what I thought I was going to be reading, but, okay, so as Judge Richard Posner comments in his excellent short study, The Little Book of Plagiarism, plagiarism is a chump's crime. He also notes that when the University of Oregon published a pamphlet on the dangers of plagiarism, it lifted an entire section from Stanford's Teaching Assistant Handbook without acknowledgement. So, I don't know. I just found that, like, you know, hilarious and interesting. But anyway, plagiarism is bad. Don't plagiarize. There was an author last week. She also makes YouTube videos. You should watch them. Lauren I can't talk. Lauren DiStefano. And what happened was she tweeted something. It was a couple weeks ago now about that horrible Brock Turner, the Stanford rapist guy. Stanford, he's coming up again. But she made some tweet about it, and it got plagiarized, like word for word. Someone else tweeted, and then that tweet actually became popular and wound up in like some news stories and stuff. Of course, she got no credit for it because it was somebody else that tweeted it. They didn't retweet it. They just, you know, stole her words and put it out there as a new tweet under their name. So with no, you know, RT or attribution or anything. So yeah, plagiarism, it happens everywhere, even in social media, which is just kind of crazy. Like, I mean, how hard is it to come up with a tweet that you gotta steal someone else's tweet? This is the crazy world that we live in. But anyway, so that's what's going on in my life, which isn't very exciting, I guess, but I am working on that revision, And, you know, it's an up and down thing. Like, you know, one day I'll be going through it and I'm like, oh, this is brilliant. And then the next day I'm like, oh God, this is such a mess. You know, it needs so much work. But anyway, that's where I am. And yeah, I hope you're all doing well. If you're somewhere where it's really hot, hope you're surviving and dealing with it. It's not too bad here, really. Right now it's morning. It's not even 10 o'clock yet, so it's still pretty cool. But it's supposed to get up to the 80s today, so it will be a little bit warmer, but I know some of you, you know, 80s, it would be like a dream right now. So hope you're doing well and enjoying the summer and having fun. And I'll make a video soon, maybe in a week, maybe not. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and yeah, keep writing, be happy. See you soon.